Welcome back to our channel. In the previous episode, we dove into Europe in 1700 before Christ, an era full of changes across the continent. If you haven't seen that epic episode yet, go check it out and then come back here. But now we'll advance 500 years to 1200 before Christ. The world is changing rapidly. Empires fall, invaders emerge from the sea, and new cultures rise from the ashes. Based on this fascinating map that you can see, we'll explore every corner of Europe, highlighting peoples, customs, beliefs, and the events that shaped this turbulent era. Let's start in Western Europe, where bronze still reigns, but signs of transformation are already appearing. Since 1700 before Christ, the region has seen the decline of ancient megaliths and the rise of more warrior-like societies, with greater use of metals. Now, in 1200 before Christ, let's look at the details. In the southwest, the Iberians dominate, a Proto-Iberian people who evolved from the Argaric culture, which as far back as 1700 before Christ was already building fortifications and practicing intensive agriculture. Around 1200 before Christ, they live in fortified settlements, like early Oppida, exploiting copper and tin mines essential for bronze. Their customs include cereal agriculture, livestock breeding, and hunting. They worship gods of fertility and nature, with rituals involving burials in pits or urns, sometimes with offerings of jewelry and weapons. Their societies are hierarchical, with warrior chiefs using ornamented bronze swords. The Phoenicians, coming from the Levant, modern-day Lebanon, arrived by sea starting around 1200 before Christ, founding colonies like Cadiz. These Semitic merchants bring navigation techniques and alphabetic writing. Without them, the Iberians would not have had access to routes to the eastern Mediterranean. In addition, the transition to the Late Bronze Age brought more advanced metallurgy, with long swords replacing short daggers, and an increase in maritime trade, making the region more connected. To the north of the Iberians, the Basques occupy the Pyrenees Mountains. Different from the Indo-Europeans around them, they maintain an isolated language, possibly a remnant of pre-Indo-European peoples. In this period, they live as shepherds and hunters in family clans, with stone dwellings. Their customs include sheep herding, coastal fishing, and fruit gathering. They hold animist beliefs, with reverence for sacred mountains and nature spirits. Rituals include dances and animal sacrifices. They give prominent roles to women in inheritance. They use simple bronze tools but resist external influences. Since our last episode, they have remained isolated, but they begin adopting bronze from neighboring Celts, strengthening defenses against invasions. Moving to the northwest, we encounter the Celto-Ligurians, a fusion of Proto-Celts and indigenous Ligurians. Now they inhabit the Mediterranean coasts and the Alps, living in fortified villages. Their warriors are skilled, with bronze helmets and round shields. They practice wheat agriculture and have incipient vineyards, and also hunt with bows. In terms of beliefs, Proto-Celtic polytheism dominates, with gods of war and fertility. Rituals involve bonfires and offerings in rivers. They hold feasts with mead and orally recount stories of heroes. In addition, the influence of the Urnfield culture arrives from the east, better known as Urnfield, introducing cremation in urns, a radical change in burials, reflecting beliefs in a more spiritual afterlife. Speaking of Urnfield, in Central Europe, that is, from Germany to Hungary, the Urnfield culture emerges. Cremation has become the dominant funerary rite, symbolizing purification by fire. These Proto-Celts live in large agricultural communities, with irrigated fields and herds. Their society is warrior-oriented, with elites mounted on horseback. They cultivate cereals, practice wool weaving, and trade amber with the Baltic. They are animists, with primitive druids performing sacrifices in stone circles. They believe in reincarnation and ancestral spirits. They hold seasonal festivals, with harp music and ritual dances. They use sophisticated bronze weapons, such as long swords for close combat. The Urnfield expansion westward and southward marks the beginning of Celtic migration, influencing neighbors with their metallurgy. Now, time travelers, let's head to the east and southeast of the continent, where bronze shines intensely, but the shadows of collapse are already approaching. In 1700 before Christ, this region was marked by strong local cultures, trade with the Aegean, and the first Indo-Europeans settling in. 5 centuries later, we are in the heart of the late Bronze Age crisis. Empires tremble, palace cities burn, and new peoples emerge on the frontiers. In the far northeast, we find the Proto-Slavs and the peoples of the Baltic Bronze Age. These groups are still in a formative phase. They live in small fortified villages along rivers, practicing slash-and-burn agriculture, raising pigs and horses. Their chiefs are elected in assemblies. They hunt with bronze bows, fish in lakes, and collect amber, which they trade with other peoples all the way to the Mediterranean. They are also animists, with thunder gods, similar to the future Purin, forest spirits, and sacrifices in swamps. They enjoy primitive steam baths and oral tales about ancestors. Their pottery is decorated with cord impressions, and they use bronze battle axes. Horse domestication has spread, allowing greater mobility, and amber trade has grown, indirectly connecting them to the Mycenaeans via Danube routes. Now let's talk about the Illyrians. They occupy the Adriatic coast and the interior of the Western Balkans. They evolved from local Middle Bronze Age cultures, and now live in hill forts, that is, stone fortresses. They are fierce warriors, known for early maritime piracy. Their customs include transhumant herding, with summers in the mountains and winters in the valleys, viticulture, and incipient iron metallurgy. They worship serpents and the sun, with megalithic tombs covered in earth. Their marriages include symbolic bride abduction, and they also hold feasts with circle dances. They use horned helmets and curved bronze swords. Next to them, the Thracians dominate the southeast Balkans and northwest Anatolia. Those who hold the most power often ride horses and have royal tombs full of gold, the famous Thracian treasures, which are already beginning to appear. They cultivate barley, breed horses, they were masters at this, and mine gold and copper. In terms of beliefs, primitive Orpheism, with a hero rider god who will become the future Thracian horseman, and sacred tattoo rituals. Nobles practice polygamy, holding royal hunts as proofs of valor. They use scaled bronze armor. Since 1700 before Christ, contact with the Mycenaeans brought adapted linear script and war chariots. The Phrygians, newly arrived from the Balkans region, migrate to central Anatolia, overlaying the weakened Hittites. They brought the Indo-European language that would give rise to classical Phrygian. They live in fortified cities like Gordion, still in formation. They have excellent musicians, the double flute is already their symbol. They worship the Great Mother Cybele, with ecstatic rituals and eunuch priests. They wear colorful clothing with characteristic Phrygian caps. Now we reach the epicenter of Mediterranean Europe, the Mycenaean Greeks. As we saw previously, they were already consolidating the first palaces. In 1200 before Christ, they are experiencing their peak, and the beginning of the end. They have kings, called Wanaks, in cities like Mycenae, Pylos, Thebes, and Tiryns, with cyclopean walls and lions at the gate. Their warriors wear plate bronze armor, the famous Dendra armor, boar tusk helmets, and long Naui two-type swords. They practice olive and vine agriculture, and have bureaucracy with linear B tablets, the first Greek writing. They believe in the early Olympic pantheon, with Poseidon as the main god, Zeus, Hera, and Artemis, with sacrifices of bulls and horses. They hold royal banquets with oral epic poetry, the roots of the Iliad, and lion hunts, which are now rare. Their trade with Cyprus for copper is intense, also trading papyrus and ivory with Egypt and the Hittites. And it is exactly in this period, around 1200 to 1180 before Christ, that the most famous event of the Bronze Age occurs, the Trojan War. Troy was a rich and strategic city on the northwest coast of present-day Turkey, controlling the strait linking the Aegean Sea to the Black Sea, a vital route for trade in metals, horses, and grains. The Mycenaean Greeks, led by an alliance of kings, perhaps with Agamemnon of Mycenae in command, besieged Troy for years. The city resisted thanks to its powerful walls. According to the tradition that would later inspire Homer's Iliad, the Greeks used a brilliant trick to finally enter. They built a huge wooden horse, hid selected warriors inside it, and pretended to abandon the siege, leaving the horse as an offering to the gods. The Trojans, believing the war was over, and that the horse was a victory gift, brought it inside the walls. At night, the Greek warriors emerged from the horse, opened the city gates, and let the rest of the army in. Troy was sacked and burned. Archaeological excavations confirm that the Troy 7 layer was destroyed by fire exactly in this era. The Trojan horse may have been a real stratagem, perhaps a disguised siege engine or simply a psychological trick, but it became an eternal legend. This long and costly war greatly weakened the Mycenaean palaces. It expended men, resources, and ships. It was one of the factors that paved the way for the great collapse that would soon follow. In Anatolia, the great Hittite Empire, which in 1700 before Christ was expanding, now collapses around 1180 before Christ. The capital Hattusa is burned. Causes include droughts, internal wars, and attacks by the Sea Peoples, mysterious groups of maritime invaders who also ravage the Levant, Egypt, and contribute to the destruction of Mycenaean cities. These Sea Peoples, identified in Egyptian inscriptions as Peliset, Sherdun, Shikalesh, among others, probably include refugees and pirates of Aegean, Illyrian, and even Sardinian origin, displaced by the systemic crisis. Pharaoh Ramesses III faces two major invasions in 1177 before Christ, winning land and naval battles. Some of these peoples settle. The Peliset become the Philistines in Palestine, bringing iron and late Mycenaean pottery. This chain collapse affects Europe. Mycenaean palaces burn between 1200 and 1100 before Christ, bronze trade breaks down, and populations migrate. It is the beginning of the Greek Dark Ages, but also the prelude to the Urnfield Celtic expansion and the emergence of iron. And so ends our journey through 1200 before Christ, a Europe of gleaming bronze, but on the brink of the abyss. Empires fall, heroes fight at Troy, new peoples move. Thank you for traveling with us. Leave your like, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next chapter in the history of Europe. See you next time.